Hello and welcome to Morgan Latif Presents Diversity and Inclusion in Focus. In this episode, I'm joined by Kristin Envig. Kristin and I talk about valuing the feminine, everything from what the key characteristics are, why they're important. We also talk a little bit about the bigger picture currently about what's going on in Afghanistan, also how valuing the feminine can have a positive impact on the planet. I hope you enjoy the episode. Thank you for joining me today. It's really appreciated.
My pleasure.
So, first of all, if we could just start off and if you could give a brief introduction to yourself, a bit about your background and who you are for all the listeners and viewers.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'm Kristin and I am Norwegian. I grew up on the west coast of Norway, fjords, islands, change of seasons, snow, sun, rain, wind, all of those things. But also on that coast, I looked out at the sea and I wanted to travel. So I spent a lot of years traveling. I lived in several countries, many, many years in Italy and in Switzerland, where I'm officially based now. But also Japan and Australia, and worked in Africa, many different places. So sort of globalized myself quite a lot. I studied business administration and an MBA in Bocconi in Milano, but also been interested in arts, acting and photography and many other things. So a little bit of an eclectic background.
Many talents, indeed.
Yeah. And during many of my travels, I was working in marketing, and then I got involved in some projects with the European Union, traveling a lot to Eastern Europe, and that was back in the early days of the sort of transition from into market economy, and we were teaching marketing in many of these countries. And it was in many of these travels that I started to realize that, I had traveled because I wanted to, and I had such freedom in some ways. I'd chosen my own education. I'd chosen to travel where I wanted, and pretty much also chosen many of the jobs. Of course, I had worked hard for it, and it didn't come on its own, of course, but still I had the freedom to do it if I wanted to do. And the more I traveled to many countries, I realized that particularly that freedom was lacking amongst not only women, but more women than men. So I started to sort of think about that. And also I worked a few years in banking in Milano in a multinational situation. And there too, I realized something different, which was more, everybody wasn't equally included, I thought. Again, it was particularly something related to women, but also intergenerational aspects I saw. And I started to sort of question, how would it be if the workplace was different, if we were more included, all of us? And even how would that be even for the business itself? So that was a second aspect that I have in my background, started to wonder about. And I also, when I lived in Italy, I was quite active in a local network of women, and that became my family. I had a sense of belonging. It was a sense where I had my creativity flowing, and I started to run these meetings. And one day I thought, how about doing a big conference where we address the topics of the world? Because from my travel, I was inspired to do a little something to make sure more people had freedom to choose their education, their work, their life. And through my work experience, I had a desire to see what could we do to make more inclusive workplaces where we embrace diversity and celebrate our uniqueness. And through the network that I've been part of, I also had experienced a sense of belonging and so much joy and fun, and I was really inspired. So on the one hand, I was triggered to do something because of the unfairness of the world, but also there was a part of me that just loved, connecting people. So I started something called WIN, Women International Networking, and the WIN conference, which is the most important thing, as a one-off thing more than 20 years ago. And this is what I've been doing on an annual basis. And then we started to do this in Japan and Africa, in India, in the Middle East, and many, many places. So that's sort of a snapshot on what I'm doing and been doing.
Yeah, thank you very much for the introduction, and actually the WIN conferences. It's definitely something I'm interested in exploring a little bit later in this conversation. Just before we move on, and today ultimately we're going to be talking about the feminine and championing the feminine, but that obviously does fall under a much broader umbrella of, and you've mentioned it already, so diversity, inclusion, and belonging that we've been discussing in this podcast. But when we're talking about this broader topic for you, what are the things that you think we should be thinking about, or that come to mind when we're discussing this?
Yeah, so I think if you think about this broader topic that's so actual in today's world of really embracing diversity, creating cultures of inclusion, making sure that everybody has the same chances, let's say, so there's equity, and that we feel we can belong to society, to workplaces. So when we look at this from a perspective of, let's say, the workplace, or it could even be society, we already know that we have very diverse societies. We have no movement of people because of immigration, emigration. Our societies are, I mean, I grew up in a very homogeneous society in Norway at the time when I was a little girl. Everybody looked like me, basically. But it's not like that anymore. And that's the great richness we have now. And as we work, also companies try to hire different backgrounds of people. And this is just the way in the world we're living. So that can bring us so much richness, but we also know that many humans are also scared of something new, scared of differences. So this is why the topic, I think, is coming up too, so that we can really learn about how to embrace our uniqueness. And there are two aspects of this. I mean, on the one hand, I see that this fun part of it, to bring people that are different together, because if I put on my team people from different countries together, it's not only because, oh, I need to give everybody a chance of different countries, but it gives me a chance to learn, to grow and learn about different people. And also, if I have some judgment about somebody being different, it gives me a chance to grow and look at that judgment also. So assuring that you bring different people to your team in your workplace, it's not that you are doing some charity. It is also for you to grow and or to learn more. And there is one study after another that says that with diverse people in the company, we get more creativity, get more innovation, and so on. And the studies also show that doesn't necessarily happen immediately. So when we work with diverse team, often we need to invest a bit more time to make it work. And once it does, then we fly. That's my experience. So that's a bigger topic. And then it's this topic of balance. So I have spent a lot of my life on the part of diversity, let's say, which has to do with advancing women, because I saw that's where there was a big gap. And in order to create that right balance of women and men having same chances, I started doing that. And then later on in my exploration, I realized it wasn't only even about women, but about certain qualities of what we call the feminine that exist both in women and men. So,
yeah, I think it's actually really refreshing and exciting, and not always the case when you hear about that. When you talk about that space for laughter and that passion really comes across, because I think a lot of people take it as quite a serious topic, which obviously it should be.
yes.
But it doesn't mean you can't have fun exploring it. And interesting, like you said, there's always that self-development. And I guess that's why people go traveling, but learning from other people.
Yes.
There's a huge opportunity for every individual, and not just because it's the right thing to do, right?
Yes, and you're right. It is a very, very serious topic. I mean, it's very serious in so many ways. And what I'm seeing is that if I put joy into it, because then also it's a part of laughing together. I mean, if I sat in Abuja in Nigeria, and what can I do to find a common ground? If you find something that we have in common, if you have a good laugh together, it's done. Then we work together. It's something about that too, that we can celebrate our uniqueness and celebrate also something we have in common. So that's what I've experienced, and what I think in this world today is something to cultivate. It's also this ability to connect with people. So to cultivate our empathy, to cultivate our looking for something we have in common with another, and find common ground, and be light about it, even if it's a very serious topic.
Yeah, when you talk about it like that, it does amaze me still that we have to continuously have the discussion, and that this is even a topic. And you talk to me a lot about that commitment, and obviously it's a shame that we have to be committed. But can you maybe talk to me about how you feel about that, and when you talk about commitment to the topic?
Yes. I mean, in some ways this topic shouldn't even need to be. That's the thing, because it is also very obvious that we are all a little bit different, we're all unique, and so on and so forth. But since it is a topic, since the world is not yet an equal playground, we need to do something about it, and the work is. So if you take an organization, the work is to work on it as a level of strategy, setting goals and procedures, all of that. And if that's the only thing we do, it will not last. I've seen this again and again, all these great intentions. Yes, we're going to have 30% women, we're going to have so and so many different diversity hires and so on. And that it's a part of the work that's important. But the other part of the work is that we do need to look inside also. We need to look at, where are my fears? Where am I judging? What are some of my biases? And what are some of my fears? And I think that's why this topic is also great, because it gives us a chance to look inside a little bit and to work on our self-awareness and our personal growth. Of course, some people find that very scary. And that's also can be understandable. So it depends on your personality type. But I think all of us in today's society have this possibility, and it's necessary, because I see if that part doesn't take place, and if you're not generous and open to difference, if it's just talk, it doesn't work.
Yeah, well, my background is continuous improvement recruitment, and there's definitely a mindset thing, and continuous willingness to learn, challenge, develop, and I think that's an important characteristic as well.
Yeah, and this is really, if you have that in you, like to continuous learning, then I think also to challenge each person, to challenge herself or himself a little bit too, to make sure you mix with some different people, like, okay, who are your friends? Who are your colleagues? So just make a little extra effort. And I think the word extra effort is something that I remind myself, and I use that word quite often. I see that to create change and transformation, you needed to make a little bit of an extra effort. I need to go and meet somebody I don't really know from before. Maybe I take a chance and hire that person. I had a good feeling about them. Maybe it's not the same as the other. There's a little extra thing we need to do. And I think that's important to bear in mind. To do something that's not the same as before asks you to take extra effort. Could be in your own growth, in your own hire, in something you need to do, whether it's inside of you or an action outside of you.
I'll definitely remember to take that one away. So it's also, before we move on to the feminine, specifically your thoughts on it, I think it is important also to contextualize it in terms of what's happening currently, where we are currently, and also why it's important to continue to have this discussion. So why do you feel that is?
Yeah, so if you talk about women, for instance, so I wish to see that we have a world where everybody has the same chances to get the right education, access to healthcare, use their potential in the workplace, and so on. And we have in many countries had the right to vote for maybe more than 100 years. In the UK and Norway, it's been a good 100 years, but it's still not an equal place anywhere in the world. We still don't have equal pay, nowhere, not even in sort of the Nordic countries where everything has been seemingly quite good. And then as we've been progressing, because now, if you look at universities, we see there's almost, in Western world, even more women are studying now than men. Women are also doing better in certain faculties of medicine and so on. A little less in the sciences, and we need to get that up. And what I'm saying to many, both women and men, but also women, sometimes I meet women who think, this is not necessary, Kristin. Why do we need a conference? Why do we need courses learning about, advancing women and inspiring the feminine? Why do we need to do that? Now that we need to stay alert. We need to stay vigilant, because our rights can be taken away also. And we see all sort of world events. We are fearful today about what will happen in Afghanistan, for instance, right now, and we are reading the papers this morning, or in Turkey recently, an important law that made it illegal with domestic violence was taken away. So there could be little things that can happen, and we need to stay awake. I mean, and I think we are. There are massive protests and massive concerns of all of these things. But I think that, and I really hope that the young women also see that, wow, there have certain rights that weren't there 100 years ago, 50 years ago, 30 years ago, and now that they stay awake to the fact that it could also change. So make it part of your way of being to not be lazy about certain possibilities that we have, because it benefits all. It's good for the guys, it's good for the women. It's an important human rights. It's a state. To have that freedom is just so beautiful, and it's so awful when it's not. And that's what I realized, I think, when I traveled before, when I went to countries where you weren't heard when you spoke up. And that many people, and particularly many women around the planet, they may not even know, because it's the only situation they know. But when you've seen and learned and experienced and felt the contrast, it's like, wow, you don't want to go back. We have to get everybody up.
So from what you're saying as well, I feel like you mean that the onus is as much on the individual from the, let's say, the lesser represented background, albeit the woman in this case, as well as the larger group, or the others on the other end of the situation.
Yes, and so it's on our individual, and then of course we have to work with legislation. I mean, it's the lawmakers, it's politics, it's corporates, it's company owners. It's all very interconnected. So in some ways, this the UN talks about this gender mainstreaming, this thought, this awareness of gender equality, or all equalities, that is a sort of general awareness. It should be in everybody. Probably need to deal with it in school more and more, so that becomes a general culture, general awareness that we can put into everything.
You talked to me a lot before about valuing the feminine.
Yes.
And could you just explain to me a little bit more about what you mean by this?
Yeah, what I mean by that. So part of my interest, I started to discover that it's not only about women and men. It's also about what we can call the feminine and the masculine, or the Chinese we call yin and yang. In yoga, you call feminine and masculine. That is in all of us, women and men. So you can say that the feminine would be receptivity, and the masculine is the action. Or we can put in the feminine also, or intuition, caring, sharing, long-term thinking, sensuality, sensing things, receiving. And in the masculine, it's structure, it is competition, goal setting, focus, all of those things, which we need a balance of. Because if you're only sitting around receiving and not getting into action, if you don't have structures but only sensing and intuitive, it is more difficult. And we need this balance so that we can create. So I receive, I do, I receive, I do, and that's the creative process, actually. But then I realized on a bigger scale that the values of long-term thinking, caring, sharing, collaboration wasn't equally valued as competition, focus, getting things done. So in traditional business, we value much more this part of the equation of what we call the masculine, the yang, the do, compete. And I thought, hey, we need to give more value to the feminine, because we need beauty, we need collaboration, we need to care and share, and we need emotions and sensing as well. And I also saw from studies actually that the feminine in men was even more devaluated, let's say. So that feminine is not owned by women. It's something that we need in society as well as in an individual life. And if we don't have that balance, the consequences on our environment, on the planet, on our organizations and our very well-being is there. And this is what we've been experiencing a lot this past year and a half also. Not only the consequences of COVID, etc., but we see the environmental disasters that I believe has something to do with this lack of balance between this feminine and value, and that feminine and masculine, and lack of values given to the feminine, to even the planet or nature. So yeah.
I think it comes down to certainty, because in the past, and you mentioned that word certainty, there was a lot less complexity in the world. And this is a gross generalization, but you devised a strategy in business, and we talk about this a lot, but you drove the strategy forward, and then a year later you reviewed how do we go. I think in the modern world, things are changing so quickly. Technology is rapidly changing, people's values are changing, and there's so much uncertainty, and there's so much more complexity. And I think that generally in that kind of environment, the male characteristics that you've spoken about are less valid, are still valuable, but there's an increased level of value on that level of empathy. Do you feel the same?
I feel the same. I mean, it's massively complex today. It's uncertain too. So the values now of the feminine is, I think gradually right now it's a good moment. I mean, it is becoming more and more valuable, and I think we need to accelerating giving it value, because what I noticed is things like even in a big conference that I do, we did evaluation forms of the speakers, and I noticed that even 800 women would evaluate a male or a male way of speaking higher than in a more sort of emotional way of speaking in a more sort of that type guy or woman. So that's why I started thinking, we need to value that. We need to value it. That's what, because we're because the patriarchy, to use that word, is in women and in men. So because we grew up in the same cultures. And this is why this awakening of women and men, but also awakening of the women, just because you're born a woman doesn't automatically protect you from the culture of the patriarchy that has installed certain value in you. So we need to wake that up too, even if you feel it maybe, and so on. So, and I think now it's coming to everybody, because the complexities is forcing it. But what about if we can get to it without being forced to it, but rather consciously choose to embark on journeys where we are learning to get more balance in our lives,
So you think it's about the balance then, both for women and men, but having both of those characteristics, being aware of that, and
exactly. And of course, it's also about this authentic journey in each of us, because we are also different, and sometimes I feel there are some people and maybe more men that are more focused or having more structure, etc. But it's not all. So it's I don't want to put stereotypes, So it's about valuing those differences and learning how can I play complementarily on different characters of the different people, but giving them all value. That's the thing, That's the thing, and that's the difficult thing. And of course, in certain jobs, it's important to be structured, it's important to be focused, it's important to have a sense of detail. And so we need to also see what work we are doing. And I think no longer being scared of listening to people's intuition and your own sort of sensing out the vibes and stuff. It's that's okay, because it's so complex now that you need to.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And it is interesting because we have several discussions and with business leaders, and there are obviously industry-specific challenges that the businesses are facing, from the semiconductor shortage to material availability, raw material prices, you name it. But actually, there are three broader topics that almost every business, or three broader challenges that every business is facing, and that being attracting and retaining diverse talent and creating a diverse and inclusive culture. The second, for us, we're frequently now having conversations around sustainability, the circular economy, and the impact that we as individuals and businesses are having on the planet. And I think the third, especially after COVID, is now a sense of the importance of mental well-being and just in personal well-being, and we've seen flexible working and much more. You said an interesting quote. You said women's empowered and inspired leadership is the key to a sustainable future and well-being for all. So I was really interested to talk to you about how you see all of those tying in together.
Yes, good. Yeah, because the when I talk about this empowered and in a way inspired leadership or way of being, is because when we are empowered and we feel sure of ourselves, sure to speak up, because then you can speak up. There was a friend of mine, she was talking about how she spoke up, but just vaguely in a meeting about a product that was polluting. But she was the only woman, so she spoke about it once. She felt she wasn't heard, so she contracted a little bit. So if you are empowered, you would say, no, that product, I don't want to launch it because it is polluting. And if you have then the empowered, you're empowered and you are inspired to speak up. And if you're not the only one, it also helps. But so by having these voices of the feminine or women being empowered and inspired today is critical, because those are the voices that needs to be heard now. Because if from politics to corporate life to entrepreneurial life, if it's not enough of the women's voices heard, it's just not the balance. And we need this now because of the situation we are in. So that's why the future of the planet, the future of organization life depends on this. Because there are dreams, there are hopes, there are voices that needs to be heard, and they need to be heard as those true voices, not, oh, I hope to fit in and I want to be approved by the majority. So this is why it creates a little bit of courage needed in this time to really speak up for the good stuff, because to have sustainability, again, we need a little extra effort. So, and to think the circular economy, you need to have a thinking also of long-term thinking and actually seeing connections. So this part of this quality of connecting the dots is a very important quality in this time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's also, I've seen a huge generational shift. And so we've been interviewing for a couple of graduate positions recently, and their sense of purpose is exceptional. And they're very, very purpose-driven in their decision-making, very well informed. I think it's the age of information as well that enables people to have a heightened level of awareness into these topics. But they've come to us and said that they're making decisions on which businesses to join, and this obviously has then a huge impact on talent attraction, based on how they're standing up in terms of sustainability, in terms of diversity and inclusion and mental well-being. So it's it's a really interesting shift for us to see here.
Yeah, I also see that it's so exciting, and of course we live in this exciting world because there is, on the one hand, technology and automation that can take care of some of the structural things. Also, and there too, we need to be aware of how we are programming these, because again, that needs also to have a gender perspective, actually, or a diversity perspective. But the young people are so informed and also very clear about what they want and not. So it's very hopeful, actually. So I hope they will be heard and listened to also as part of the diversity. I think it's this training for each of us to, as managers and leaders, to listen to the young, and also because there is a group now being discriminated more and more, actually. It's the age discrimination too. So why not listen to somebody in their 70s or something also, as we listen to those that are 21? It's this how to make sure we hear different perspectives around us.
Yeah, absolutely. We see that, and we consult our clients all the time, that actually, as long as they've got the energy and the right mindset, and
the mind,
that experience can be hugely valuable, and it's often and hugely undervalued, actually. But I think that's also quite a traditional thing, that once you get to a certain age, you should be doing a certain thing. And I think that hopefully, you're right, that's another area of discrimination we're seeing, and hopefully that does change.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to talk to you about these the Women International Networking Conferences quickly, because we haven't even had time to explore this in much detail. It's discussions, but I think a few people might have in their mind that it is that they might have negative perspectives of it just being a load of women being anti-men, and I know that's definitely not the case. So could you give us some insight into what these look and feel like, and maybe some of the key learnings from the last one, when the next one is? I'm super interested in hearing about this.
So first of all, guys, don't be scared. It's about having, making space for the women, but not kicking out necessarily the guys. But how can we be space for everybody? But the conference is awesome. It's an experience. It's not like a normal conference you sit and just listen, but it is, you listen sometimes, but it's also designed as an experience. So there is an interaction between, you listen to speakers talking about what's happening in the world, what are new trends, and how can you become part of creating those new trends. And then many workshops, the interactive skill building, sharing, and we start with the whole big picture of the world, and then we go into the workplace, the future work, future careers, and this interchange between listening and being skill building sessions and networking and so on. And then a huge focus also as a third part on you, or we, so it's world, work, you, and how that goes all together. So that's sort of the framework of change, as we call it. And all through this perspective, and I call it's sourced from the feminine, or it is like with the hope of having this balance, of course, or the dance between the masculine and feminine. But how would the world look like if it was created, given value to all those qualities of the feminine? And what would the workplace, and how about our careers? How do we stay employable in the long run in a sort of regenerative way? And what if you live to your full potential and could fully collaborate with men and women and everybody? So it sounds maybe a little bit of an utopia, but it's nice to be a part of, and to strive and be inspired to something like that. So it's a very, very cool experience to be a part of. We have music, there is wellness in the morning, doing qigong, yoga, whatever, and then so it's quite an intense experience, but it's a really cool conference. I hope you can come and be part of it.
When is the next one?
The next one is first week of November. So it's 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th of November. And it's both online and small hubs also. We will a little bit see how the world situation goes, but you can for sure be part of it online from everywhere.
So it's definitely also a COVID-safe environment, no matter what happens, what the state is, what the restrictions are, but an opportunity to have some fun.
Yeah,
that sounds great. I'll put a link in the.
Please put the link. We call it the WIN conference, and and it's obviously a win for everybody. So yeah.
Perfect. So I think it's a bit time for us to wrap up now, but if you could maybe summarize for us what you would say the key, if we take anything away from this discussion, what would you say the most important things for us to remember are?
Yeah, I think maybe we can say, to make an extra effort to meet someone that's a bit different from you, to talk to someone a bit different from you, and the same extra effort also in spend a little time on yourself to look inside where maybe you were judgmental or felt a little bit scared because of something different. So the extra effort, and then also meet as much as you can situations and people with the lightness and fun, even because many of these topics are serious. There's a lot of serious news and all of that, and we want to actually stay in a way of creating inspiration as much as we can, so that can impact also on our well-being and the mental well-being and so on as well. So part of that, and it's a great unifier of people of many differences. So I think that's important. And then catch yourself in giving value to someone, caring in the workplace, or even creating a great context for the team to feel good. That is valuable, not only producing, because the person who actually creates a good atmosphere, make sure that other people can, or that everybody can produce. So give value to also the intangible, so, and of course, and don't ever take our rights for granted, and make sure we are putting boundaries and saying no when that's important, when that is the right thing to do.
Yeah, it's important we continue to have the conversation, especially in light of the recent world events. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So I sound light about it, and I am very serious about it. So it's and that's what I think is important.
Great. Thank you again. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.